Welcome to the Private Practice Alchemy video podcast series, where I help you work smarter and earn more in your ideal therapy practice. I'm your alchemist and host, Jennifer Kennett. My guest today is John Clarke of Private Practice Workshop. John is a private practice coach and thought leader in the counseling industry. Today we're discussing the biggest marketing traps that therapists fall into and the most effective marketing strategies for growing your practice quickly. So I am excited to have a guest on my show, John Clarke. Thank you so much for being willing to come on the Private Practice Alchemy web show. And John is a thought leader in our community. He is a licensed counselor. He's owner of Calm Again Counseling, recently opened in San Francisco. He is also a private practice coach with privatepracticeworkshop.com. And he has been helping therapists get more clients, make more money, and master private practice since 2013. He has certainly been somebody that I have looked to get advice on how to be a better private practice owner. So I'm so excited to have you here. So let's jump into the private practice side of things. And the first question I want to ask is, what do you see as the biggest marketing mistake that therapists make in their private practice?
Well, I had notes, but I'm already going to steer away from mine. I'm already going to go back on my notes. Just probably telling of me. A mistake that I see a lot is that therapists give up too soon when they're trying something, especially trying something new. A good example would be blogging. Hey, I blogged for 30 days and my practice isn't full yet. What gives? Trying anything like that. There's kind of a critical mass that things reach after therapists do things for a while. And by a while could mean a lot more than 30 days. It could mean more than 90 days. Who knows? Especially when we think about like creating kind of a footprint for your local marketing, right? So in large part, I'm talking about Google. So it takes time. You have to build trust with Google over a very long time. You also have to build trust with consumers. And so some of the big mistakes I see on that front are unclear messaging on your website and often saying too much. It's kind of like meeting someone for the first time and you get so nervous that you just talk a lot about yourself or ramble too much. Hopefully I'm not doing that today. You talk about yourself, ramble, go on, and it just gets confusing, right? It just comes across as kind of nervous. And so I think clarity is key for a therapist's website, especially now where our lives are so much online more than ever before. If I'm looking at a bunch of therapist websites back to back, the one that has the most clarity, and I would even say brevity, is likely going to be the one that wins.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it's been interesting. I've had a number of my clients say that they reached out to me because of what was on my website. And my goal has always been, if somebody is sitting there reading it, in the back of their head, they're thinking, has she met me already?
Yeah.
Like, how does she know that's where I'm at?
Yeah.
That to me is a way of building trust. And it's hard. Writing marketing copy is an art form. Yeah. And I think most therapists, we are trained on the academic writing, not on the marketing writing. And so it takes some effort to switch.
Yep.
So
really simple exercise for that is to think about the before and after of a client as it relates to your service, whether you're, washing their car, or, whether you're a car washing business or a therapy business. Yeah. What's going on right now before, they've encountered you or your business? What's the outcome that they're looking for as it relates to your business? How do they want life to be different? So if you have those two pieces, right, of current situation and desired situation, well, guess what? Position yourself in the middle as part of the solution, as part of the solution to get them to their desired situation. And if you just keep it simple like that, you can really understand, again, why people buy anything, because they're trying to get to their desired situation, whatever that may be, as it relates to your product or service. So we just tend to overcomplicate things, but best thing you could do is to either write directly to a real client, right? Or envision a real client and do your writing that way, or a fictitious one. Either one would work, but I would say lean on, err on the side of like keeping it really outcomes focused and really the pain points are an important hook as to like what what are the problems of your consumers, but then you also want to get to the outcome too, to make sure that they see that you understand what they really want out of life.
A great tool I've heard on that one was write down what you do and then add "so that" to the end of it.
Yeah.
And then fill in the "so that."
Yeah.
Because that gets to those benefits, those outcomes that clients want.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get too focused also on the vehicle itself. So therapists might create their website and the entire thing is about the vehicle, which could be, my Gottman level 4 training or EMDR. And people, it might be relevant to some extent and to some people, but at the same time, again, people are trying to envision themselves getting there, right? It's like looking, if you're ordering an Uber and being obsessed with the kind of car that is picking you up, which matters just to some extent, right? If it's either a really cool car or a really crappy car, but in reality, you're just trying to get to the coffee shop.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think we take so much pride in the training we get, but we forget as therapists that DBT, EMDR are buzzwords that we understand, but they are what I affectionately call psychobabble.
Yeah.
The client doesn't understand that. So I do DBT says nothing to them, but I help you deal with feeling overwhelmed with your emotions using DBT. Okay, using DBT, it's like, oh, they know what they're talking about, but they're going to help me do the thing.
Or the "so that" part. I use DBT so that we have a framework for our therapy work and we're not just meandering all over the place, right? Some people like that approach with DBT in particular. So in that regard, you can get more into the specifics or even what makes you different, right? Or even looking at, for a lot of people out there who have failed therapy experiences, you could comment on those in some of your marketing collateral, right? Or even comment on how hard it is to find a therapist in the first place. And you could resonate with them over that, the search process itself. So there's a lot of openings out there to connect with the client.
Definitely. One of the things that I've really found is that therapists in general struggle with the idea that we are having sales conversations as part of our work, especially in the early days. And the idea of a funnel, the sales funnel in the business world, that's a catchphrase that everybody understands. But in the therapy world, there's like, oh, what? So talk to me about what you mean by a sales funnel and how would you recommend a therapist start creating something like that?
Yeah, it's fun. That word breaks people's brains. And it means all sorts of things. In reality, a funnel is basically anything that leads someone toward a sale. That's plain and simple. That's what it is. If I'm at the checkout line at the grocery store and I'm seeing, the magazines or the last minute items, at the checkout aisle, that's kind of part of the funnel, right? What got me in the door was something else. I needed, milk and eggs or whatever, but then I'm in there and that store is trying to lead me toward additional sells or upsells or downsells, right? So it can get kind of fancy, but to answer your question, for a therapist, most of the time, the top of the funnel, right? So let's say your homepage is the top of your funnel, the very top, the widest part. People come to that funnel through traffic, whether it's organic traffic or paid traffic. There's really only two types. So they land there. You build some of that relationship with them through your copy, through your collateral, through a video, through your images, right? Your brand. And then there's an exchange that's going to happen. For some people, for many therapists, this is going to be the book a consult or send me an email or pick up the phone, right? Basically your main call to action to start the process. They get on the phone with you, they become a client, and your funnel is basically over, right? The funnel was, they landed on your site, they took an action, they went somewhere. Now, if you want to be fancy and do something that I've been kind of on a kick about lately is, for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, they will require 2 pieces of information to give you anything for any sort of exchange. Hey, if we're going to give you a free call, a free consult, guess what we need? Name, first name, and email address.
Yeah.
And guess what we're going to do with that? We're going to add you to an email list or to an automated sequence as part of the funnel. And that's where the funnel starts to have multiple parts. So let's say really simple funnel that could work really well for therapists is on that homepage, call to action says, get started now or book a free consult.
Mhm.
They click that big button and it opens a pop-up, and the pop-up says, basically enter your first name and your email address here. Click the little checkbox, their consent, in order to book a free call. They click that button, submit that information, and then they land on your schedule page or your simple practice widget, or
Right.
your Calendly page, and they book a call. Now, here they book that call and the call happens, or maybe they don't. This is where a funnel really starts to be powerful. Let's say they get distracted, they go do something else, they get ambivalent, which clients do. You have that email address, and that email address is going to basically get put into an automated sequence.
Right.
That sequence is going to, let's say, send them one email every other day for the next 6 days or something like that, or the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
That email sequence is warming them up, adding value, teaching them things, continuing to introduce yourself, which is a really important part of the process. And guess what? At the end of each email, you're still calling them to action. Say, by the way, if you haven't already, book that free call with me here if you'd like.
Right.
So the odds of you kind of winning that lead, which is going to make a lot of therapists cringe, is a lot higher, right?
Yeah.
Than, hey, look at my website and it's either, book now or get lost and forget about me. So
It's interesting. One of the objections I heard recently from a therapist with the idea of asking for somebody's first name and email is, well, isn't that personal health information? And how do I reconcile if this person becomes a client and I am sending them materials? How is that ethical? And
Right.
I was like, that's an interesting question. We had a very useful conversation, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that. How do you answer that objection?
There's no doubt you need to protect that information. It could be argued, right, that they're not a client yet, or unless they go through your funnel, become a client, get onboarded into your EHR or whatever. But if you want to be really careful, then if you're going to collect any information whatsoever, you want to make sure that your email service provider, whether it's MailChimp or ConvertKit or whatever, can either guarantee the privacy of that information or sign a business associate agreement or a BAA.
Yep.
That could be a good way to just say, listen, I'm collecting basically medical information. I need to make sure it's confidential. So there's certainly ways to do it. And it's certainly not a reason to not do it. And I see a lot of therapists not doing email marketing for that fear of confidentiality. So take a couple steps to really lock it in, and then you can put it behind you.
I think the other piece that really comes up for me is, as a consumer, I give my name and email address regularly. I have informed consent in that moment. Yeah. And I don't see it being different whether I'm giving it to you as a coach or a therapist who is going to potentially be sending me valuable psychoeducation. I think there's value in communicating this does not replace therapy. Correct. But all of those caveats, those support systems can be put in place, and we need to accept that our clients or potential clients are capable of making an informed choice. We don't have to protect them from themselves.
100%.
And I think that's sometimes where our profession gets so over-focused on protecting our clients that we start protecting them from their own ability to make good choices.
Yeah, I agree.
So another question I wanted to ask you about is the piece around fees, because I heard a great podcast, I think it was, I'm not sure if it's a podcast or something that you wrote that I read, was talking about how we are not trained in grad school to think about this as a profession where we're going to make money. Yeah. There's this message of, oh, you're going into this for reasons other than making money.
Yeah.
So what makes it so hard for therapists to set a fee that is going to give them a living wage?
This became part of my story, and this is why I started coaching therapists. Is, in graduate school, they sat us down for this intro to clinical mental health course. They had a bunch of really beat up looking therapists who'd been in the field for like 2 years. Guess what? They're all working at agencies, getting their butts kicked. They all sat down, and pretty unanimously, and one of the professors even said, listen, guys, this is kind of real talk. If you're here, if you think you're going to help people and make money, you're in the wrong place. right? Go somewhere else. You still have basically a chance to quit this program while it's still the first semester, right? First week of the first semester. And I thought, wow, first of all, I'm not going to quit because I feel like this is really my calling and what I want to do and what I love. Second of all, it's incredible how widely accepted that was, even with that whole panel of people, even with the faculty who, by the way, haven't been in the field for 30 years or haven't even been building a business, on their own, right? As they're too busy being professors. And I just thought that can't be true. And it actually kind of made me mad. So I held on to that all these years, and I've worked to make sure I can help people and make money. And I want therapists to do the same. So I think even more longstanding than that, I was talking to someone recently about how if you're going to pay a medical doctor an hourly fee like out of pocket, well, where do you base that fee off of? Well, where was it generally based off of originally? Who set that fee, right? Or if they see me for 15 minutes, what's the reimbursement rate, right? Well, $492 or 32 cents or whatever. And guess who set that rate? Insurance did. Well, guess what they also did? They set rates for therapists. This was quite a while ago, and guess what? They didn't want to pay very much, and they still don't want to pay very much. So we're grossly underpaid and really grossly undervalued, I think, historically by insurance companies, followed by consumers because they don't have to pay more, right? And also because of mental health stigma around accessing services. I think therapists largely have some issues of worth. They just have money issues and issues saying my fee is X amount of dollars or $220 or whatever fee would shock you. And therapists really work hard to shame one another, which is something that let's just stop that in 2020. Why not?
Please.
So it's all that. Yeah.
John, you are speaking my language. I think the other piece that really drives me nuts is that we are taking our newest therapists and we are throwing them into these work environments that have high acuity, low pay, and we're expecting that is going to create excellence. And I'm just blown away by that. I mean, I know that the first 3 years of my profession, I worked harder and felt more overwhelmed than I have in 7 years in private practice. It's this message of this, well, I did it, so you get to do it. And I'm like, that's not okay. When we look at places like lawyers, lawyers have a very similar level of training that we do. And yet the newest lawyer gets billed out at least $250 an hour. They may not be making every penny of that in
making six figures in their
but they're
first
still
job.
making six figures in the first year. And it's so I really part of my joy in working with private practice owners is breaking that myth of we somehow should be doing this out of the goodness of our heart and making money is somehow immoral.
I mean unfortunately, I had someone ask me recently. She said, "Hey, you know what? I've had this other career my whole life, but I want to become a therapist. What do you think?" And I found myself giving her some warning of, it's true, you're not going to make much money, at least not real soon, because school takes quite a while. You need 3,000 or 4,000 hours to get licensed. And guess what? In a lot of places, including California, you either get paid like crap, or in some places they expect you to work for free. So, well, what if I have a family? Not too bad, right? Take on more debt. So that early experience, right, for clinicians, or even being expected to work for free after you've already worked for free in graduate school as an intern at the counseling center or whatever, and then you get out, you need to get these hours, right? So if you can finally make it to then getting licensed, having your own practice, seeing the clients you want to see, who, like you said, tend to be less acute, tend to have more of their kind of basic needs met, right? Then you could probably have a real good career in therapy and start making good money. But we do need to do a lot more to take better care of, newer clinicians and not basically like initiating them like it's some badge of honor to just get beat up for 3 years until you get licensed.
Exactly. Yeah. That was one of the goals that I had with the teaching practice. And it's still one of the goals that I have as a coach, is to say, there is another way. And in Washington State, the good news is that as an associate, you can open your own practice as long as you're under supervision.
That's cool.
Interesting fact, I moved here from Canada. And so all of my experience was in Canada. I sat down, or I sent in my application for the associate's license thinking my Canadian experience will count and I can get my license right away. None of my Canadian experience counted. So I spent 6 years in private practice growing the practice and learning how to market myself because I couldn't take insurance. And I am so grateful for that. I mean, it was hard, and there's lots of hilarious, side stories to that. But ultimately, it's something I can say to new therapists is you're going to either learn how to navigate the insurance world, which is frustrating and completely opaque, or you're going to navigate learning how to market yourself in private pay. But both of those are a learning curve. Which would you prefer to learn now?
Yeah. Getting on an insurance panel is, for some therapists, a last-ditch effort or a replacement for marketing, right? Or, hey, I tried, again, I blogged for 30 days, I didn't get clients, so I'm going to get on an insurance panel even though I don't want to, or it's not part of my business plan, or it's not going to pay me enough, but it's enough for now. Or maybe I can just get on it for a while and then get off of it, or like poach clients from it. And it's, again, it's nothing fundamentally against insurance or even practices to take insurance. There's plenty of therapists I work with who have thriving insurance-based practices. Again, but if my client who's in rural Ohio, they, Blue Cross Blue Shield pays out the same rate there as they do in San Francisco or in Manhattan, then I have a real problem, right? Because then I can eat. So it just depends on what works for you, right? And for the therapist, but we need to just come to terms with really charging what we're worth. And again, understanding that really communicates our value. People take us more seriously. Clients, there's outcome studies that show that clients actually can get better results. They show up on time. They're more bought into the process. They do their homework. If you do homework in therapy, or if that's kind of part of your style. So there's just many reasons, right, for that. Not to mention people, especially in San Francisco, where I am now, they have such amazing benefits that, $250 for a session is very rarely a true $250. They hit their deductible, which is $1,000 a year. And then guess what? Their insurance starts paying 60% of my fee or whatever it is, right? Or workplace benefits. So you just need to think about that as well.
For sure. And I do hear therapists say, well, I want to have the ability for a wide variety of people to have access to me. And that is a different reason to take insurance. That may be part of a bigger picture. It's the I have to that I want to really question. And it sounds like you're pushing on that one as well. It's like, we don't have to. I'd also like to see us as a larger profession, the LMHCs, the LMFTs, the social licensed, clinical social workers. We need to get together and really be advocating as a block with insurance companies. It drives me insane that a doctor can get something like 20% more for doing something that they're not trained to do. With that CPT code that I use all the time. Just because they've got a better lobby system.
Much better.
Much better. So we need to learn from that.
Yeah, we do. And one more thing about fees, if my background is nonprofit, my background is agency work and really with a real social justice lens. So because I charge full fee for a predetermined portion of slots, that's what allows me to then have some sliding scale, have some even pro bono work. I still work with client from my agency back in 2013, right? And I can do that because I'm running a profitable business first.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it. Somebody said to me once, well, if you choose to have your fee really low, you're subsidizing everyone, and it's not in your control. But if you're choosing to have a fee that is a living wage, then you have a choice about who you're subsidizing. You're not subsidizing everybody. And then when you hear somebody in a session say, I went out and bought myself a new car, you don't feel resentful. It's like, wait, you're buying a new car and I'm getting, under $100 an hour? Wait a second. What's wrong with this picture? That's us, not them.
Exactly.
So the last question I have for you is really about that really effective marketing. You've talked about consistency, and yet there are going to be better and worse choices in terms of return on investment for our time. What do you see as the top 3 things that a therapist should be doing to really move the needle forward?
Apparently I don't do well with lists because I have a list, but I'm already going to not use it. So I just started this new practice in San Francisco, and I'll just tell you what I did. In fact, I told my email list what I did recently because I thought it'd be interesting to people who want to see me go through the process of building a practice from scratch and competing in terms of digital marketing in a very dense market like San Francisco.
Yep.
Let's see how I'm going to do this. Well, this is what I did. And if I had to kind of build a practice in an afternoon or start getting clients in an afternoon, here's what I would do. Hopefully people are cranking up their volume at this point.
Yes, I'm leaning in.
I'm just kidding. This is what I did. I built a really simple, non-cluttered Squarespace website over the course of a few hours that was really focused on an avatar, right? So a young, ambitious tech professional who's got anxiety, and that anxiety is just starting to permeate all parts of their life, right? This is where the name Calm Again came from. I thought, what's the outcome that people want? They want to find calm again. Let's just call it Calm Again Counseling, right? So even the name is conveying something. So I did that. I wrote some really simple pages, again, on that really simple Squarespace site, big, bold calls to action. And then guess what? No one was clicking my site. No one was finding my site because it was just out there in the ether.
It was brand new. So
brand new.
Doesn't have any traction.
So what I did to get traffic almost immediately, just to start getting traffic that week, was I used Google My Business, which is a free listing that you should all have and be using and tending to religiously like it's a precious garden or something. I set up that listing. I added high quality photos to every category on my Google My Business listing. I asked some colleagues in my area, in the San Francisco area, for testimonials, for reviews, which is going to majorly help the listing get traction. And then I started posting to my Google My Business, which tells Google, hey, I'm alive and well, or hey, I'm taking this seriously, right? I'm a vital, alive business, and I'm keeping this posting really up to date. Guess what? Over the course of the next couple of weeks, I had 4 inquiries, right? Which turned into, again, cash paying clients. So this is just one thing to do to kind of kickstart a practice, right? And in reality now, we're rolling out a more comprehensive strategy, which is basically just taking that site and staying what I call Google obsessed, running a lot of Google ads, focusing on SEO, which is just basic keyword research and a lot of blogging, a lot of content. And the last thing that I do to tie it all together is I build my email list and I engage that email list every Monday, through our newsletter, just to stay top of mind to people, to continue to build awareness and to continue to serve people that have shown interest in my business.
So you mentioned Google AdWords. Talk to me a bit about that, because I think that's something that I hear therapists say, well, I don't know if that's going to be helpful. And it's often coming from a place of, I don't know how to do this.
Right. They usually screw it up before they conclude, they spend $100 and it didn't get you a client. So they go, Google Ads didn't work. Well, it's usually not that Google Ads didn't work, because what happens is if you've spent $100, you've gotten $100 worth of clicks. People have landed on your website and something's not clicking in the chain, right?
Right.
So let's say I run an ad and I'm targeting anxiety keywords in San Francisco. So let's say that part's working well. An anxious person in my city clicks on my ad and lands on my page. And then they go, oh my goodness, this page is hideous. It's confusing. There's pop-up things everywhere. I don't know what EMDR, DBT, or CBT is. And they leave and you go, well, my Google ads didn't work.
Right.
Right. This is what most people do. So the reality is they do have to be set up properly. They're pretty difficult to do. We've spent the past few years now teaching therapists how to do it through my fully booked program. And we have a lot of tools to kind of accelerate your process, like keyword libraries and databases and stuff like that. So when done well, it should be profitable every time.
Yeah.
Right. You should be putting money in and getting money out. And so it's a very effective way to grow your practice.
So that, the image that keeps coming to my mind is that the sort of that sales funnel is part of it. Is, you're bringing in people through your Google AdWords, and the bottom of your sales funnel is flat. And so people are kind of hitting it and not doing anything else. The gravitational pull doesn't pull them to the point where you actually want them to to be, which is
Yeah.
making that consult.
Yeah.
So rather than calling it a sales funnel, we need to talk it a marketing gravitational pull.
Yeah, love
We
it.
need heavier
Way
gravity.
catchier.
So that's it. I really appreciate what you're saying, is that Google AdWords isn't an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And so getting some help is an
Yeah.
important step. But assuming that Google AdWords works or doesn't work based on, you know, the conversion rate, it's not the Google AdWords, it's the Google AdWords in
Usually
addition
not.
to your website.
Yeah,
They have
unless
to
you're
work
getting
together.
totally the wrong kind of traffic, right? Or unless I'm screwing things up and I'm marketing to people in the wrong area or the wrong keywords, or you know, if I'm targeting anger keywords but sending them to a depression page or something, then I might confuse people a little bit. So it does have to be the right kind of traffic, getting in front of the right kind of message. And then once they see that message, guess what? You have to do the rest and actually convert them when you get them on the phone, talk to them about how you help, how you can get them to that desired situation, and then close the deal. And again, guess what? It is a deal, you know, that you're closing on those calls. So you have to address every part of your funnel, so to speak.
And you know, that was actually the key piece of advice that you gave me about my website. You came back and it was wonderful to hear. You said, this is a really well-designed website and you need more calls to action.
Right.
And I went, oh, okay, what does that mean? And you essentially said you need to make an appointment button at least twice on every page, if not 3 times. And I remember at the time kind of going, that feels very in your face. And yet it was exactly the right advice. It was the one thing that took me from okay conversion to fantastic conversion. And so I just wanted to say to our audience, that made such a difference. It was that call to action being really clear and compelling that was the tweak that I needed to make that website be successful.
That's the cool thing too, is that sometimes, and I'm glad that little tip helped. Sometimes we're really close to, like, again, reaching this mass, like, you know, like this mass effect of starting to be successful or see, you know, results in our practice. And so on one hand, you have to keep iterating and make the right changes. On the other hand, a lot of therapists, they just change too many things at once and you're never going to know what caused the result, right? Like a good scientist. So if I said, change the call to action, change the colors, change the copy, change your business name, and let's see, you know, what works, right? We're not going to know what caused any sort of change if all things are equal or if your traffic remains roughly the same. So change one thing at a time, measure it before and after. So even just looking at my traffic and my number of inquiries per week, look at that for 30 days, change one thing, and then measure it again, measure those 2 numbers again. You'll feel like a real scientist in no time.
And it really underlies the fact that this is not a quick process. It is, we do have to have patience. The other thing it reminded me of, I guess about 10 years ago, there was a video that went out and everybody was excited about it. It was like 212 degrees. And it's this whole thing about the difference between 211 degrees and 212 degrees is water boiling. And you can have really hot water that does nothing. But you have steam and all of a sudden you can power an engine. And it was this whole message of you just have to put in that little bit of extra effort and be consistent, and massive things can change. So I think that's a useful metaphor, is we really need to remember that we have to boil the water, not just get it hot. And some of that takes time. We can't expect to put the kettle on the stove and it's going to be boiling like that. You have to wait.
Love it.
But you also have to put on the heat.
Can do both. I like it.
So, John, thank you so much. It has been such fun having a conversation with you about all things marketing. And I would love to just get a little bit of how my listeners can get in touch with you and what your current offering is for private practice coaching is.
Yeah, they can head to privatepracticeworkshop.com. If you want free stuff, we have a regular podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It's called Private Practice Workshop. Same thing on YouTube. YouTube has actually become our biggest platform. This year, it became our biggest platform, or our fastest growing platform. And then I basically have 2 paid programs. One is called Fully Booked. It's a 5-step system for getting new clients consistently. The other is called Business Made Human. It's a weekly mastermind, and it's designed to help you grow your business and really design a business that fits into and feeds your life rather than takes away from it.
Yeah.
Both those programs actually open in October. They open roughly every 6 months, so they're opening again in October. So whatever time this comes out, you can find me then, or head to privatepracticeworkshop.com to look more into those programs and jump in when the doors open. So there you have it.
Awesome. Thank you again. And
Thanks, Jennifer.
It's been a wonderful conversation. Thanks for joining me today. If you're ready to work smarter and earn more money in your ideal therapy practice, book a 30-minute free coaching call with me. Visit my website at privatepracticealchemy.com and click on the big purple Schedule Time with Me button. And if you're in your first year of private practice, sign up for the next cohort of my 90-day Private Practice Alchemy Accelerator Group. Groups start in January, May, and September. You can register for the next cohort on my website. Thanks for listening.